you need to move out, my mom announced in the middle of Christmas dinner. I calmly replied, really? I'm the one paying the rent, utilities, and groceries. The next morning, I packed my things, walked away without a word, and by that evening, they were begging me to come back. Hey Reddit, my name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old, and the last Christmas I ever spent in my childhood home ended with my mother looking up from her turkey dinner and casually saying, you need to move out. She didn't yell, she didn't argue. She simply said it as if she were asking someone to pass the mashed potatoes. The entire table became silent. I slowly placed my fork down. Then I looked around the room, at my father, at my younger brother, at my mother, and finally I asked one simple question. Really? My voice stayed calm. I'm the one paying the rent, the electric bill, the internet, the groceries. I even paid for this Christmas dinner. Mom didn't even blink. She smiled. You've helped enough. It's time to let your brother have some space. My younger brother smirked. I simply nodded. Okay, that was the only answer I gave. The next morning, I packed everything I owned, loaded my car, locked my bedroom one final time, and drove away without saying goodbye. By sunset, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Looking back, none of this happened overnight. My parents had struggled financially for years. Dad injured his back working construction when I was 25. The injury never completely healed. Mom worked part-time at a local gift shop. Between medical bills and reduced income, things became difficult. I had just accepted a promotion as a project manager for a software company. The salary was more than enough for me to rent my own apartment. Instead, I made another choice. I moved back home, not because I wanted to, because my family needed help. At first, everything felt temporary. I'll stay 6 months. That became a year. 1 year became 3. Then, almost 6 years passed. Every month, I quietly transferred money to cover the rent, paid every utility bill, filled the refrigerator, replaced broken appliances. When Dad's truck finally died, I helped with the down payment for another one. Whenever Mom thanked me, she always said the same thing. We'll never forget everything you've done. I believed her. My younger brother, Kyle, was 28. Unlike me, he rarely kept a job for long. Every new position ended the same way. The boss didn't appreciate me. The hours were unfair. They expected too much. Mom always defended him. He's just finding himself. Meanwhile, I worked 50-hour weeks, sometimes more. Nobody ever asked how tired I was, because I was the responsible one. That became my identity. Whenever groceries ran low, Emily would buy them. When property taxes arrived, Emily handled them. When the washing machine broke, Emily figured it out. Eventually, nobody even asked anymore. It simply became expected. Still, I never complained. Christmas had always been my favorite holiday. Every December, I decorated the house, wrapped every present, bought matching pajamas, ordered groceries weeks ahead of time. This year, I spent nearly $2,000 preparing Christmas dinner for 12 relatives. Prime rib, turkey, fresh desserts, everything Mom loved. The dining room looked beautiful. Candles, red tablecloth, fresh pine garland. For a little while, it felt worth every dollar. Everyone laughed, shared stories, opened gifts. Then, halfway through dinner, Mom cleared her throat. Emily, I smiled. Yes, we've been talking. Dad immediately looked down at his plate. I noticed. What about? Mom folded her napkin. Kyle needs his own room. I looked confused. He already has one. He needs more space. So, she took a deep breath. We think it's time for you to move out. The room became completely silent. Even the children stopped talking. I slowly looked around the table. Finally, I quietly asked, really? Mom nodded. You're doing well financially. You can afford your own place. I couldn't help smiling. I've always been able to. She frowned. Then what's the problem? I calmly answered. I pay the rent. I pay every utility. I buy almost all the groceries. I even paid for tonight. Kyle shrugged. You make good money. You'll be fine. I looked directly at him. And you? Mom interrupted. Don't start. I'm not. I'm asking. Dad still hadn't said a word. I looked at him. Dad, he sighed. I think your mother is right. Those words hurt more than anything else. I slowly nodded. Okay. Mom seemed relieved. I knew you'd understand. I smiled politely. I do. She reached for another serving of potatoes. So maybe you can be out after New Year's. I quietly took another sip of water. No. She looked surprised. I'll leave tomorrow. Everyone froze. You don't have to rush. I'd rather not. Kyle laughed. See? She's being dramatic. I looked at him calmly. No, I'm respecting Mom's wishes. Dinner continued, or at least everyone pretended it did. Nobody spoke much after that. That night, I packed quietly, Clothes, books, laptop, important documents, kitchen appliances I'd purchased myself. The coffee maker, the microwave, the air fryer, the vacuum, everything that belonged to me. I also canceled every automatic payment connected to the house. Rent transfer, electric, internet, water, streaming services, grocery delivery, everything, not out of anger, simply because none of it belonged to me anymore. The following morning, I carried the last box to my car. Dad watched from the front porch. He looked uncomfortable. You really found a place overnight? I smiled. I signed a lease months ago. What? I just never moved. He stared at me. You already had another home. I wanted this house to stay financially stable. He lowered his eyes. I didn't know. No, you never asked. Mom stood in the doorway. I hope we're doing the right thing. I answered honestly. I hope so too. Then I hugged Dad, told Mom, Merry Christmas, got into my car, and drove away. No tears, no yelling, no slammed doors, just silence. At exactly 6:12 that evening, my phone buzzed. It was Kyle. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered before I could even say hello. He shouted, Emily, the landlord's here. Sometimes, people don't realize who's carrying the weight until that person quietly sets it down. As my brother's panicked voice echoed through the phone and the landlord waited at the front door, I realized moving out wasn't the decision that would change my family's life. It was everything I had quietly stopped paying for. I gripped my phone so tightly my hand hurt. Dad was crying, not the quiet sniffles I'd heard at funerals. He was sobbing. Rachel, I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes. You told me I wasn't welcome. I know. I didn't understand. His breathing shook. Please, just let me explain. I sat down on the edge of my bunk. I'm listening. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, Dad said, Your brother sent those messages. I frowned. What? He borrowed my phone while I was asleep. He told us later that he'd handled Christmas. My heart sank. You never texted me. No. I didn't even know you'd canceled your flight until Christmas Eve. I felt a knot in my stomach. Then why didn't anyone call me? Dad let out a long, painful sigh. Because Ethan blocked your number on both our phones. He also deleted your messages. I couldn't speak. The room suddenly felt very small. Dad continued, We thought you were ignoring us. We kept wondering why you never answered. I whispered, Oh, my God. He broke down again. When we finally realized what he'd done, so you were already gone. I leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of everything. What happened? Dad's voice hardened. We confronted him. He admitted everything. He said he didn't want you coming home because... Dad stopped. I quietly asked, Because what? He thought we'd spend Christmas talking about your military service instead of his business. Silence. Then Dad added, He said he was tired of living in your shadow. I stared at the floor. For years, I'd believed Ethan didn't care what anyone thought. I had been wrong. A week later, I flew home. Not for Christmas, for answers. Dad met me at the airport. The moment he saw me, he wrapped me in the biggest hug of my life. I'm so sorry. So am I. Mom was waiting in the car. The second I opened the door, she burst into tears. I thought you hated us. I shook my head. I thought you hated me. Neither of us could stop crying. Back at the house, everything looked exactly the same. Except, it didn't feel the same. The Christmas tree was still standing. Most of my presents remained unopened beneath it. Mom pointed toward them. I couldn't bear to move them. Later that afternoon, Ethan walked through the front door. He froze the moment he saw me. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I looked at him. No. Tell me why. He sat down. Then, for the first time in his life, he answered honestly. After Dad sold the hardware store, and my business wasn't doing well, I kept comparing myself to you. Everywhere I went, people asked about my sister in the military. They talked about your promotions, your medals, how proud Mom and Dad were. He laughed bitterly. And every time, I felt smaller. I quietly replied, So you decided to erase me? He nodded. I thought, if you skipped one Christmas, then everyone would finally focus on me. Dad stood up. And instead, you nearly destroyed this family. Ethan lowered his head. I know. A few moments later, the front doorbell rang. Dad opened it. Standing outside was David Morrison, the family attorney. He stepped inside carrying a folder. I think everyone should hear this together. We all sat down. He placed several documents on the coffee table, then calmly explained, A week before Christmas, your parents updated their estate plan. Dad nodded. We wanted both of our children treated equally. The attorney continued, After discovering what happened, your parents immediately asked me to revise those documents. I looked at Dad. I don't want anyone punished because of me. Dad shook his head. This isn't punishment. It's accountability. He looked directly at Ethan. You intentionally separated this family. You lied. You manipulated us. You abused our trust. The attorney explained that the revised documents placed strict conditions on how family assets would be managed in the future, requiring transparency and independent oversight so that no one person could manipulate decisions again. Dad looked at me. This isn't about choosing one child over another. It's about making sure honesty matters. For the first time, Ethan didn't argue. He simply nodded. I understand. Over the following months, things slowly began to heal. Ethan entered counseling. He admitted his jealousy had been growing for years. Instead of pretending nothing had happened, we finally talked about it. Really talked. Not as children competing for approval, but as adults trying to rebuild trust. It wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. But it was honest. Epilogue. The next Christmas, I came home again. This time, Dad met me at the airport himself. He refused to let anyone else drive. Mom hugged me before I even reached the front door. Inside, the first gift waiting beneath the tree wasn't wrapped. It was my old stocking, exactly where it had hung every Christmas since I was 10 years old. Dad smiled. It never should have come down. Ethan walked over. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'll spend the rest of my life earning back your trust. I hugged him, not because everything had been forgotten, because forgiveness begins when someone accepts responsibility without making excuses. That Christmas wasn't perfect, but it was real. And after everything we'd been through, that was more than enough. My thoughts, looking back, the text message that broke my heart wasn't sent by the person I believed, but the pain it caused was real. One unanswered conversation nearly destroyed an entire family. Trust is precious. It should never be built on assumptions. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't speaking louder. It's picking up the phone, asking one more question, and refusing to let silence become the final answer. And no matter how many miles separate a family, honesty will always find its way home first.